I am going to be kind of starting a new challenge of sorts that I haven't really seen and thought would be interesting to try. So basically I've decided to call this Review, Reread, or Unhaul.
La Mer.
Basically, you are assigned a book at random on your shelves, and you have to decide if you are going to review it if you have already read it. If you can't review it, then you will need to either add it to your immediate sort of TBR to read it for the first time or reread it. If not either of those choices, then you may need to unhaul the book if it isn't worth reviewing or rereading. And of course some exceptions may apply, such as if it is like a very sentimental particularly book, then obviously we aren't gonna like force anybody to do anything they don't want to, but you know. Also, if it is something you have already, you know, included in the challenge, and if you get a book that is part of a series, just treat it as if you got whichever is the most like recent book of the series that you've read, or the next one that you had planned to read, depending on where you are in that series, and kind of go from there. So yeah, I just figured it would be an interesting way to kind of also me myself start with a few like on the spot sort of reviews of sorts, and generally kind of like take a closer look at some of my books, because all too often when I go through and look at actually unhauling books, all too often I have noticed personally that I have like a vague summary of a book in my mind, or like sometimes even like the vague summary I had from when I chose to purchase or obtain that book has now floated away, and now we just sort of remember how we obtained the book, and you don't really refresh what it was about, and it may or may not just be sitting on your shelf when you've lost interest. Because let's be honest, looking thoroughly for unhauls can be difficult sometimes. So I thought it would be an interesting idea. Now, last time I did a challenge where it required picking a book at random, I did use a random number generator, but then I remembered I have a better option for that, even though, you know, small YouTubers, we may not necessarily have the following to just be like, hey, give me some coordinates or some random book numbers and stuff and get a bunch of answers. So I remembered I have been actually using a reading jar. I haven't used it recently because I've been kind of backed up on some books, and there was reading marathons that I was doing and the like. And so I haven't updated it in a couple months, but the majority of my books are in there. And so this is my reading jar, my little reading owl, that I've had for several years. It's supposed to be a cookie jar, but I just never used it for that. And so a few years ago I ended up going through everything and take out this couple other things that were stowed in there, so I've got like some spare stuff, but for the most part it is full of little post-it flags. And so I have a system in here where any that are blank on the outside like this are books that are on my TBR that I don't own yet. So this was like, the original goal was to pull books at random at the start of the month, and if I pulled one that was blank, it would be, okay, I go obtain that book, whether from the library or purchase it and go ahead and read it. If I didn't have the budget to obtain the book, or it wasn't at the library sort of deal, draw again for something that's actually in my library. We have the regular star for books that I have a physical copy of, and if it's a series, that means it's a completed series, like I have all the books in that series in my library. We also have these with asterisks, which means I do have a copy of the book, but it is an ebook only. And then the last one, no, there's two more, JKLO. We also have music notes for similar to the ebook if I have it only as an audiobook. And the last one actually is where there's just a little dot on it, and that means that this is a series that I only have some of the books for, so it's incomplete. So yeah, that is my little system. So I figured I would go ahead and use this to choose my books for this challenge. So yeah, obviously because there are some books that I may not own yet, I may redraw a few times, but there we go. Now this has been like 6 minutes of just introducing this, so yeah, I think that's pretty much covering things. If there are any other like rules I need to like make clear as we go along, we'll figure it out. This is just the first time. But yeah, and any other questions, if you think of any other rules that I may have forgotten, or just other ideas, because I think I want to make this kind of like a reoccurring thing on my channel, like once every month or two, maybe. Yeah, I think I'm going to start off with 5 prompts and see where we go. And yeah, let's start the job. Let's see. This one's blank, but I'm still gonna open it in case it's one I've gotten since I put this in there. So the book is Waiting for Tom Hanks. I do not have a copy of that yet. Draw game. Yay, it's a Star one. Viral Parenting by Mindy McKnight, which is actually on loan to my sister and has been since I got that book like a year or 2 ago. So that's also gonna be exempt. Oh boy. Another owned book. So I guess that would be another exception we'll add to the list. If it's on loan, you can skip it. Remembrance of the Daleks / Prisoner of the Daleks. So that is my Barnes & Noble collectible edition. So we will go ahead and participate with that one. I'm gonna just draw the 5 books and then gather them and go through from there. Just because I don't want to be getting up off the floor and sit back down and square everything multiple times. Would be easier if we had a chair, but you know, we have to sit on the floor because these are short bookshelves. This one is an ebook, which is called Zeus Grants Stupid Wishes, and that is good because I am terrible about remembering to get around to my ebooks. I know there's a whole ton of them that exist, but I'm so used to using my physical library that I tend to forget to, you know, get around to actually reading them, and I'm trying to be better about that. So we will include that as well. Another owned physical book, Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts Guide to the Films. This may be an exemption, so I'll draw an extra to kind of counteract that. Audiobook. This one is The Getaway. And anything that I basically choose to read or reread from this challenge, I'm going to be adding to my March TBR. Since we are technically in the middle of February, but I'm impatient and wanted to go ahead and film this. And this next one, which is one I've been waiting to read, The Hate You Give. One more. What Will Happen in Harry Potter 7. I don't have that one. So we go again. Another potentially unknown book. The Jumper series, and I have not gotten anything from that series yet. The Timekeeper by Midge. I do have that one, so that'll be our last choice. And we'll grab these ones that I skipped, put them back in the reading jar for next time. And so now I will go ahead and grab the selected books and go from there. Okay, so the first book that I pulled was Doctor Who Remembrance of the Daleks by Ben Aronovich and Prisoner of the Daleks by Trevor Baxendale. Yes. So this is a Barnes & Noble collectible edition bind up of sorts that I was actually gifted by my sibling Sasha a couple years ago, along with the other Doctor Who collectible edition book that kind of matches with it. As far as I know, there's only the two. And I did read this back in, I believe, 2018. I read through them. I read through all of I read through all of Prisoner of the Daleks, but I DNF'd Remembrance of the Daleks. Prisoner of the Daleks is a 10th Doctor story. I believe it is during like the 2009 specials era, where he didn't have a companion. Basically he travels, from what I remember, he traveled so far into the future that like Daleks are supposedly like a long defeated thing that humans are just like, they're like gone. What the heck, what is this? Like, I don't even remember for sure if the people he comes across even really know for sure what the Daleks are. Either that or like they're so just over it that they just like don't even care. Okay, so I look kind of crap because I'm editing and it's after work and whatever, but I'm literally editing this, and so I basically said that for this book, like, humans just like don't even care about Daleks, or like barely even know what they are because they're like so defeated and whatnot. And I'm going back and reading through the summary, and I'm just like, wow, I got that so wrong, because literally reading the summary on Goodreads, it says the Daleks are advancing, their empire is constantly expanding, the battles rage on across countless solar systems, and the Doctor finds himself stranded on board a starship near the front line with a group of ruthless bounty hunters. Earth Command will pay these hunters for every Dalek they kill and every eye stalk they bring back as proof. So like, they very much are aware of what Daleks are, and they very much do care. But the main thing I was remembering is just like the classic thing in the shows where like he comes across one like lone Dalek and they basically underestimate the Dalek, and yeah, it's a whole thing. But yeah, I was wrong a bit. Just the details and conversations I remembered playing out in the book made my brain think that things were almost kind of opposite as they were in that book. So yeah, goofed a bit on that one. Anyway, moving back. If I remember correctly, and they basically come across a Dalek way out in the middle of nowhere, and basically, as with many of the Dalek stories where the Doctor comes across one lone Dalek that's supposedly the last of the species, trying to decide, you know, do we grant it mercy, do we kill it because it's Dalek and such. And so yeah, I really enjoyed that particular one. I don't remember a whole lot of details now at this point, obviously, but I do remember it being very much focused on that moral argument with the Daleks. And of course the 10th Doctor is always my favorite, so that was a nice enjoyable aspect to it. Though I wish there was a familiar companion, as always. I usually prefer the companion episodes. And then, of course, the other half of it, A Remembrance of the Daleks, is actually, I believe it's a 7th. I get confused kind of like in the middle of like the old school ones. So, it should be the 8th then, right? I'm pretty sure it's the Doctor played by, God, why am I blanking on names? Sylvester McCoy, right? That should be the name that I'm thinking of. Dr. 8. I need to look now. Just be like... Okay, so we've got Ace as the companion, right. And then I think I assumed Sylvester McCoy is Doctor. So I don't think it specifies specifically which Doctor this is. Wish I could see. This is supposedly based off of an actual episode, though. So, anyway, basically for Remembrance of the Daleks, I have not watched a whole lot of classic Doctor Who. I've tried to get through it a couple of times, but I keep getting stuck like in the middle of the first Doctor because I hit some of those lost episodes. But I still plan to continue to try to get through it because I do want to familiarize myself with the older show a bit better, but I just am struggling to keep on top of that. Other shows come along and then I end up taking like a break from watching the classic Who, and then I forget to go back to it sometimes. So my most recent attempt was last year sometime, a few months ago, and then I took a break, and yeah. Technically I'm in the middle of way too many shows right now, between Classic Who, Quantum Leap, Vampire Diaries, The 100. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I basically DNF'd it because, at least for me, I wasn't really familiar with that particular Doctor. I haven't seen anything with Ace as a companion, so one, I was just unfamiliar with the characters, so kind of thrown into it with that was a little like hard to get into, but also with it having been based on an episode, there were parts of it where it was hard to kind of follow along because, like, when a show, like when you switch between scenes and it's just kind of an abrupt thing, and it read very much like they were just writing like out the script of the show, so it was hard to kind of tell some of the perspective changes, and it just was hard for me to get into because, as I said, like so much of it was just unfamiliar to me. So I may try to reread this. I'm technically stuck between a review and a reread. I'm not sure if I would do any better yet because I still haven't, of course, seen anything from that doctor or companion just yet. But I, of course, am holding on to the book because eventually I would like to actually finish that story. And of course, just these books are beautiful, and I did enjoy the other Dalek story in there. So that is the first book done. So what I also wanted to kind of do is kind of insert what I put as my original review when I first read the book, and probably do more of that with future ones as well, where I do have reviews, because I don't always leave one. Trying to be more regular with them, but anyway. What I originally put in my review back in October of 2018, I said, I unfortunately have shelved Remembrance of the Daleks after 70 pages as I found it a bit difficult to follow. The perspective changes were sudden and sometimes hard to place with so many characters involved at the same time. But Prisoner of the Daleks definitely proved to be a positively brilliant read. The battle of morals and ethics really came through, and I could easily see it all play out as an episode. Would be 5 stars if not for the first story issues. There we go. Okay, and so the second story was this one here, Zeus Grants Stupid Wishes, which is, I think I just bought it as like a cheap Amazon ebook, or like, I think it may have been like through BookBub or just a promotional thing from Amazon themselves. It's been a hot minute since I got that book, but I do remember it was only like $1 or $2 for the ebook. Obviously I haven't read it yet. Since this would be a book I will now be adding to my TBR, I will just be reading the description as it kind of stands here on Goodreads. So it says, all our lives we've been fed watered down PC versions of the classic myths. In reality, mythology is more screwed up than a schizophrenic shaman doing hits of Unidentified. In Zeus Grants Stupid Wishes, Corey O'Brien, creator of Myths Retold, sets the story straight. These are rude, crude, totally sacred texts told the way they were meant to be told, loudly and with lots of 4-letter words. Skeptical, here are just a few gems to consider. Oh. The entire Egyptian universe was saved because Sekhmet just got too hammered to keep murdering everyone. Okay, clearly I don't think I read the full description on this when I got this, because right now I'm looking at this and being like, I don't know if I like this after all. I think this may actually end up being an unhaul, because looking at this, this is not my tastes. So, there's one in the unhaul pile there. And, yeah. Okay. This is why I created this, so that I could actually go through things better and actually be like, oh, I really still want to read that. I can't believe I forgot. Or in this case, why did I get this book? I did not pay enough attention. That it was presented differently, however I purchased it. Okay, and so the next one is The Getaway, which is an Audible original that I think I just got for free as part of having an Audible subscription, as one of their like free choices of Audible originals. So, in this short thriller from #1 New York Times best-selling authors Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen, a young woman's dream getaway becomes her worst nightmare. Prepare yourself for a transformative experience. Sometimes life setbacks contain hidden gifts. Here at Lakewood, you'll find the space to unwrap them. A weekend at the Lakewood retreat is exactly what Chloe Powell needs. Freshly unemployed after her boss loses a re-election campaign, the former press secretary desperately wants a break from the bustle of Washington, D.C. A flyer posted at her yoga studio leads her to the Getaway, which looks amazing. Organic meals, celebrity testimonials, and a serene private property within driving distance of the city. It's so perfect, in fact, that Chloe's barely bothered by the intensely personal questions she's asked in her application or the unnerving social experiments her enigmatic host Sebastian imposes on her once he arrives at his remote cabin. But once a mysterious new guest shows up, Chloe can no longer suppress her rising panic. This place is not at all what it seems. Pulse-pounding story from the first minute to the last, The Getaway explores the weight of the small choices we make every day and their staggering unintended consequences. So yeah, this one is still going to be read. So I'm going to go ahead and be adding that to my March TBR. If not technically this month, simply because I don't have an audiobook lined up technically for when I finish Mockingjay soon. So unless something that's already on this month's TBR becomes available, I may actually go ahead and do that this month. But either this month or next month, it is getting read. Moving right along. The next choice is Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts: A Guide to the Films. And this is just kind of like an infographic book that I picked up from Kroger in their little tiny book section sometime, I believe, last year, maybe the year before. I have already read through it, and so you get a lot of little infographics in there regarding the books. So yeah, as I've mentioned in previous videos, my thing is collecting books that are about the Harry Potter series. Not necessarily all official like this, but yeah. So, while this was a pretty easy read, nothing particularly probably all that new. The infographics are all very pretty, and it's, part of the collection now, so there's that. Not really a review, but this isn't really reviewable material, which is why I said it might kind of count as an exception, because there's not really a lot to review when it's mostly just pictures and little blurbs. So yeah. Next is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, which I also have not read yet, and I feel appropriately ashamed for not having gotten to it yet. And I'm very glad that this gives me an opportunity to finally put it off of my TBR, so to speak, once I have read it here soon. I've put it on the TBR a couple of times, but last minute changes have pushed it back, so it would be nice to go ahead and actually get to it now. So yeah, pretty sure basically everyone knows what the story is about, because it was literally everywhere in book community and movie wise, but in the event that someone hasn't actually read through the description themselves, I will go ahead and do so once Alice starts bumping into the camera tripod. 16-year-old Star Carter moves between two worlds, the poor black neighborhood where she lives and the fancy suburban prep school she attends. Alice is rolling back and forth on a cardboard box and making all kinds of noise right now. Miss Alice. my pretzel girl. What are you doing? So yeah. The uneasy balance between these... Alice. My God. Little girl. Come here. Can you be quiet for 2 minutes, please? You can lay in a hammock or something. Something quiet, please. Okay? No, not the box again. Elise. Can you not go back in the hammock or something? Oh, okay. So the moment my phone camera opens up, you finally... Okay. Try this again. So the uneasy balance between these worlds is shattered when Star witnesses the fatal Why? The uneasy balance between these worlds is shattered when Star witnesses the fatal shooting of her childhood best friend Khalil at the hands of a police officer. Khalil was unarmed. Soon afterward, Khalil's death is a national headline. Some are calling him a thug, maybe even a drug dealer and a gangbanger. Star's best friend at school suggests he may have had it coming. When it becomes clear the police have little interest in investigating the incident, protesters take to the streets and Star's neighborhood becomes a war zone. What everyone wants to know is what really went down that night, and the only person alive who can answer that is Star. But what Star does or does not say could destroy her community. It could also endanger her life. Angie Thomas's stirring debut about an ordinary girl in extraordinary circumstances addresses issues of racism and police violence with intelligence, heart, and unflinching honesty. I have actually watched the movie for this a while back, but as I've said many times now, I am eager to actually read through it. Miss Alice? So now you know how to be quiet on me? When I'm finally done? See how it is? And the last book for the challenge for today is going to be The Timekeeper by Midge album. This was also gifted to me by Sasha about 2 years ago, I want to say, maybe 3, and I have already read it. I believe I ended up reading this as part of the Owls or Newts for 2019. Yes, 2019. So yeah, basically it kind of tells a story of a man from way back, and basically how he sort of created the way to keep track of time. So like basically going through with like the basics of like a sundial or something similar, and how he basically started tracking time, and basically kind of goes how he is sort of almost like cursed to basically watch time play out for the rest of pretty much eternity, because he started keeping track of everything. And so it's basically kind of like the story of Father Time and what actually happened to him, and how there is a particular person I think it follows in like present time as well. But as with pretty much all of the books by Midge album that I've read thus far, between this and the 5 People You Meet in Heaven duology, it just is a very thought-provoking read, and I definitely really enjoyed it, and have since, of course, kept it on my shelves because it is one of those more introspective stories to read, and definitely was a great choice. For anyone unfamiliar with this one, this is in Midge Album's newest work of fiction. The inventor of the world's first clock is punished for trying to measure God's greatest gift. He is banished to a cave for centuries and forced to listen to the voices of all who come after him, seeking more days, more years. Eventually, with his soul nearly broken, Father Time is granted his freedom, along with a magical hourglass and a mission, a chance to redeem himself by teaching two earthly people the true meaning of time. He returns to our world, now dominated by the hour counting he so innocently began, and commences a journey with two unlikely partners, one a teenage girl who is about to give up on life, the other a wealthy old businessman who wants to live forever. To save himself, he must save them both, and stop the world to do so. Told in album's signature spare, evocative prose, this remarkably original tale will inspire readers everywhere to reconsider their own notions of time, how they spend it, and how precious it truly is. And so that pretty much completes the challenge for this month. I think I will be doing this more or less on a monthly basis. We shall see how this goes. Just kind of as things are. I'm basically deciding to do like the 5 books to challenge myself with in each round, since of course we don't want to add too much to a TBR pile, since there are other books that are on my like immediate TBR pile, like series I'm in the middle of and everything. So yeah, I tried to keep it pretty simple, and yeah. If anyone else wants to participate, definitely feel free to do so. As I said, you have the choice to either review it, reread it, or read it for the first time if you haven't yet, or it may just be time to unhaul that book if you don't see yourself reading it, or rereading it if the case may be, or like I did with the Sue's book, find that yeah, I don't know why I purchased this / obtained this book, and we don't need it anymore. So yeah, any thoughts? If you have read any of the books that I mentioned in this video, let me know your thoughts as well, and definitely let me know if you choose to also partake in the challenge, because it would be interesting to see what other kind of reviews or thoughts people have on their own book collections, and yeah, be interesting to see. Anyway, that completes the challenge for this round, and in the meantime, if you need me, I'll be reading. Je suis